Hello, I'm Miss Christy. Welcome to Story Time. This week we are focusing on the moon and moon stories. So I borrowed some moon stories, downloaded them from the NASA Night Sky Network. Thank you, NASA, for making these things available for educators. So let's give a little introduction about moon stories. And the moon itself is a fascinating satellite. It goes around the Earth, and we have been watching it as long as we've been here on this Earth. There are as many stories about the shapes on the face of the moon as there are cultures who have observed them. They often relate moral stories or creation stories. Think about, when you're listening to these stories that I'm going to tell, think about each of the characters that different cultures see in the moon and how they relate to the moon. The first one I'm going to tell is from Peru. It's called Fox in the Moon. All that Fox could think about was getting to the moon. After braiding a grass rope long enough to reach the moon, he got help from the birds to fly it up to the moon for him. Once that was done, Fox climbed up the rope. Now, the birds say they can see Fox in the full moon. Can you? The next story is from China. This one's called Toad in the Moon. So we had Fox, and here is Toad. Heng-O found out that her husband, Sheng-Ai, had discovered the secret of immortality. That means he was living forever. When she found his magic potion, she drank it and immediately flew out of the window up to the moon. Sheng-Ai was so angry with what she had done, he turned her into a three-legged toad. Can you see the toad in the face of the full moon? The next story is from Scandinavia. It's called Jack and Jill. Now we have, in story time, we have done a rhyme called Jack and Jill Went Up the Hill. Do you remember that one? This story is a little bit different. Jack and Jill were sent up the hill to fetch a pail of water from a magical well. Water from this well inspired poetry and prophecy. Prophecy is like telling the future. The children were spotted by the man who carries the moon across the sky each night in his chariot. He scooped them up into his chariot and carried them away. The two children can still be seen there today, along with their bucket and pole. Can you find the splash from the spilled bucket? Look at the moon. Very good. So our next story is from Australia. Bahul the Moon. Back in the dream time, Bahul visited the earth and saw two young women who invited him to ride in their canoe. He was a little unsteady in the craft. Oh, and he fell into the water. Embarrassed by his clumsiness, he hid. Although he now shines brightly every month, he remembers his little accident and shrinks away to gather his courage. Can you find the embarrassed Bahul in the full moon? Our next story comes from New Zealand, called Moon Woman. The Maori called the woman in the moon Moon Rona. On a moonlit night, she was returning from a stream with a calabash full of water. That's like a big pot. Water slipped, or the moon slipped behind the cloud for a moment. Moon slipped behind a cloud for a moment, and in the darkness, Rona stumbled on the root of a tree. Angry, she cursed the moon. Moon, who would not stand for this abuse, swooped down on her and carried her off along with the water gourd and the tree that had tripped her. The Maori still see all three there today. The next story comes from Polynesia. It's called Moon Woman. Another moon woman. Have you ever seen a rainbow at night formed by moonlight instead of sunlight? Legend has it that Hina, a Polynesian woman who was on her way to get some fresh water, did. She had always wanted to live in the heavens, so she walked along the rainbow and didn't stop until she reached the moon. She lives there now, and you can see her beating her tapa board to make cloth. Can you find her? All right, our last story today is from Mexico. This one's called Rabbit Moon. In ancient times, an Aztec god chose to set himself on fire and jump into the sky to light the cold, dark world. He became Sun. A second god, jealous of the praise that new Sun was getting, did the same. All of that light angered a third god who threw a rabbit at the second Sun's face to dim his light, making him the moon. Can you see the dark rabbit on the moon? Now, if you like, you can create your own moon story.